Hey guys, welcome back to the Music Hole. My name is Cole, and today we're going to travel back to 1989 to talk about a true art rock, poet rock type album by Lou Reed, which is New York. And I mean, just look at that album cover. Is that not rock and roll or what? I love it. But anyway, it's a very cool album. It's a very hip New York kind of album. I like it. So let's dive right into it. Track 1 is called Romeo Had Juliette. Let's check it out.
1, 2, 3.
Caught between the twisted stars, the plotted lines, the faulty map that brought Columbus to New York. Betwixt between the east and west, he calls on her wearing a leather vest. The earth squeals and shudders to a halt. A diamond crucifix in his ear is used to help ward off the fear that he has left his soul in someone's rented car. Inside his pants he hides a mop to clean the mess that he has dropped into the light of lightsome Juliette Bell. And Romeo wanted Juliette, and Juliette wanted Romeo. And Romeo wanted Juliette, and Juliette wanted Romeo.
Yeah, I mean, just how rock and roll is that beginning guitar riff? I just love it. It's so cool. And then on top of that, you've got the kind of arty, poety, Lou Reed style of singing. You know, it's a very poetic song. It's a very poetic album. You know, and I like this song because he's talking about how, you know, in New York City, you've got the kind of artsy east side, the lower east side thing going on, and then you've got the upper class, rich west side part of town, part of Manhattan, right? And they're commingling because of how New York City works, right? So you've got basically one of the few places in the entire world where two people from completely different classes in society can actually like meet each other realistically, right? You know, like most of the states in this country, in America, for instance, you know, classes are separated by entire towns, right? So if you want to mingle with people from really rich families, you got to go to that town, right? They're not hanging out at whatever small town you're from. So New York and, you know, I guess Los Angeles and I guess most of the cities, right? San Francisco, those are the places where you're going to have a Romeo and Juliet type thing going on. So anyway, I mean, this album is a wonderful celebration of all things New York, and this is a great way to kick that off, in my opinion. I love this song. But let's move on to track number 2 and talk about Halloween Parade.
There's a downtown fair singing out Proud Mary as she cruises Christopher Street. And some southern queen is acting loud and mean where the docks and the Badlands meet. This Halloween is something to be sure, especially to be here without you. There's a Greta Garbo and an Alfred Hitchcock and some black Jamaican stud. There's 5 Cinderellas and some leather drags. I almost fell into my mug. There's a Crawford Davis and a tacky Cary Grant. And some homeboys looking for trouble down here from the Bronx. But there ain't no Harry and no Virgin Mary. You won't hear those voices again. And Johnny Rio and Rotten Rita, you never see those faces again. This Halloween is something to be sure.
So obviously during the 80s, there was the AIDS epidemic, which really hit New York City especially. And this song is just a really lovely remembrance of all of the faces that Lou Reed, you know, used to see around town all the time because he was part of that community. You know, he's really deep in that community. But now it's 1989. It's the Halloween parade where, you know, thousands of people gather to celebrate and dress up. But he's just remembering all the people who are no longer there, right? And he just feels sad about it. He's lost a lot of friends, I would imagine. It's just a really sad time in history where, you know, not only did the AIDS epidemic kill a lot of people, but it really put the gay community in a really bad spotlight, right? Because everybody thought it was the gay disease. So it's just a really awful time for homosexual culture, LGBTQ culture, you know. So I love this song. It's just a nice little remembrance of all of his friends who've passed. But anyway, let's move on to track 3, which is another really cool kind of classic rock and roll type song. It's called Dirty Boulevard.
This room costs $2,000 a month. You can believe it, man, it's true. Somewhere a landlord's laughing till he wets his pants. No one dreams of being a doctor or a lawyer or anything. They dream of dealing on the dirty boulevard. Give me you're hungry, you're tired, you're poor, I'll piss on them. That's what the statue of bigotry says. You're poor huddled masses, let's club them to death and get it over with and just dump them on the boulevard. Get them out on the dirty boulevard. Going out to the dirty boulevard. They're going down on the dirty boulevard. Going out.
Yeah, Lou Reed is just keeping it real, right? I mean, yes, America is a great place. New York City is an amazing city. But he's speaking to all of you foreigners out there who are thinking of the American dream. You want to move to America and have a business and do, you know, whatever you want to do that you couldn't do at home. And yes, it is better here. But he's being realistic, guys, right? Especially if you're coming to a place like New York City where they charge crazy high rent, right, for just a small apartment. And basically you have to work like 16-hour days just to afford your darn apartment. I mean, geez Louise, right? So basically, a lot of people come here and they find themselves among the dirty boulevard folk, the drug addicts and the drunkards and the homeless people, right? All the people who really struggled to make it here. So on one hand, New York is obviously this incredible city where there's everything available to you, practically, like all kinds of food and kinds of people and opportunities. You know, if you want to be an artist, this is a great place to be, all sorts of stuff like that. But if you want to reap the benefits of that, you got to be realistic and understand that New York City is a cutthroat place. So he's just keeping it real for you guys here. I appreciate that. But anyway, let's move on to track number 4, which is called Endless Cycle.
The bias of the father runs on through the son, leaving him bothered and bewildered. The drugs in his veins only cause him to spit at the face staring back in the mirror. How can he tell the good act from the bad? He can't even remember his name. How can he do what needs to be done when he's a follower and not a leader?
Yeah, this song really spoke to me lyrically because I actually never thought about this, really. I probably should have. I feel stupid for having not done so. But he's basically talking about situations where you've got a guy who grew up, he had a terrible childhood. His parents were abusive, right? His dad was probably drunk all the time and physically abusive and probably hit his mom or whatever he did. And so the result is a child who's probably really angry at the world and who probably learned from his father, right? I mean, to be a little boy is to basically kind of idolize your father in a lot of ways. So in other words, what Lou Reed is trying to get at is, how can you expect somebody with that upbringing to just easily become a good person, right? Their road to being a good person must be incredibly hard because, you know, their life has been so difficult, and all they've had to learn from really is their horrible parents. So it's an endless cycle of, like, if you want to break out of that cycle and you want if you are in an abusive family, you're more likely to become abusive yourself, right? And the only way you can break out of that is through some therapy and introspection and a lot of help, right? Otherwise, you're probably going to just end up like your dad. I mean, that's what I've read anyway from psychology articles and stuff like that. But anyway, so I appreciate this song. Let's move along to track number 5, which is called There Is No Time.
No time for celebration. This is no time for shaking hands. This is no time for backslapping. This is no time for marching bands. This is no time for optimism. This is no time for endless thought. This is no time for my country right along. Remember what that brought. There is no time. There is no time. There is no time. There is no time.
So this is kind of an interesting warning song. Basically, he's reminding us that, like, yes, things seem to be going very well in the country at the moment, right? But keep in mind that there's always the possibility of negative things creeping up and coming at you by surprise. Pay attention to history, right? Heed the warning signs of whatever bad news situation might be cropping up on the fringe of society, you know. So he's like, there is no time for optimism and flag waving and celebration. I mean, it's great that things are going very well at the moment, but let's not kid ourselves. You know, not everybody's doing well. And also, it takes a constant effort to keep things positive and to keep things going well, right? It's not like, oh, things are going well, so we don't have to try anymore. No. You got to constantly work at it as a country, as a city, and as a country. You can't just give up. You can't just say, okay, we won. You know, I'm going to go back to something else, some other hobby or whatever, you know. So I appreciate this song. He's just trying to keep things in perspective and remind everybody that, you know, just keep being a good person, just keep looking out for people, and if you keep on it, then we will continue to thrive. So I like this song. It's a nice little message. But anyway, let's move on to track number 7, I believe. Let me just make sure. Yes, it's called The Beginning of a Great Adventure.
It might be fun to have a kid that I could kick around, a little me to fill up with my thoughts, a little me or he or she to fill up with my dreams, a way of saying life is not a loss. I'd keep the tyke away from school and two to him myself, keep him from the poison of the crowd. But then again, pristine isolation might not be the best idea. It's not good trying to immortalize yourself. Beginning of a great adventure. Beginning of a great adventure.
Yeah, this song really intrigued me, you know. I mean, what he's talking about, of course, is he's dreaming of a future child he might have, and he's excited by the possibility of, you know, I don't know, showing him how to play guitar because he's a guitarist, or showing him how to play basketball because maybe Lou Reed likes basketball. Basically, he wants him to be like a new version of himself, right? Ideally. And he's very excited at that idea, except I would say, you know, don't be disappointed if your son or daughter doesn't like any of the things that you like. You have to respect their own individuality, right? For instance, in my own life, I'm not much of a book reader, but my mom has a huge library. She loves books. She's always telling me about books, and I'm kind of like, yeah, that's, you know, that's cool, I guess. But, you know, I'm sure on some level she feels sad that I am not also a book lover. But then at the same time, she's not really a music fan. I'm a big music fan, of course. So, you know, we have this disconnect there. So this song makes me think about how, you know, just because they're a part of you, right? It's their blood, it's your blood in their veins, so to speak. You created them. That doesn't mean that they have to be just like you. And if they aren't just like you, don't be sad about it. Celebrate their individuality. So that's what this song makes me think of. You know, I like that it's making me go deep a little bit with some thought experiments. But anyway, let's move along and talk about track number 8, which is called Busload of Faith.
You can't depend on your family. You can't depend on your friends. You can't depend on a beginning. You can't depend on an end. You can't depend on intelligence. You can't depend on God. You can only depend on one thing. You need a busload of faith to get by. Watch it, baby. Busload of faith to get by. Busload of faith to get by. Busload of faith to get by. Need a busload of faith to get by. You can't depend on the worst.
Lou Reed just hitting you over the head with the hard truth. You can only really depend on yourself, right? I mean, yes, sometimes other people can help you out. You can ask them to help you out, and they do. But at the end of the day, it all falls on you. You have to find self-motivation, self-confidence to get things done, right? You know, there's the classic saying of like, if you want something done right, do it yourself. So even though, yes, there are going to be people in your life who you can depend on to some extent, getting through life is based on a busload of faith, right? You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to love what you're doing. And anything else is just kind of like wishful thinking, right? You're just hoping that maybe God will help you out, or your friends will come to the rescue, or your family will come to your rescue. But you have to, if you want to get ahead in life, it's got to come from here and here, right? That's the most important thing. And I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do, right? It's not an easy thing to achieve, but you have to figure out a way to achieve it. Otherwise, you're in deep trouble, right? So he's getting real. I appreciate that. But anyway, the last clip I want to talk about is from track number 9, which is my favorite song in the album. It's called Sick of You.
I was up in the morning with the TV blaring, brushed my teeth, sitting watching the news. All the beaches were closed, the ocean was a Red Sea, but there was no one there to part it in two. There was no fresh salad, cause there's hypers in the cabbage. Staten Island disappeared at noon. And they say the Midwest is in great distress, and NASA blew up the moon. The ozone layer has no ozone anymore, and you're gonna leave me for the guy next door. I'm sick of you. I'm sick of you. They arrested the mayor for an illegal favor, sold the Empire State to Japan. And Oliver North married William C. Cord and gave birth to a little Tehran. And the Ayatollah bought a nuclear warship. If he dies, he wants to go out in style. And there's nothing to eat that don't carry the stink of some human waste dumped in the Nile. Well, one thing is certainly true. No one here knows what to do, and I'm sick of you. I'm sick of you.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I don't really listen to the news, right? Because it's all just negative stuff. It's never anything positive. It's never like, hey, the country was going really well today, nobody hurt anyone, and you know, there's no famine in Africa, and everyone's doing really well, so see you tomorrow, right? It's all just like rapists and murderers are in your neighborhood, and there's dictators who are starving their people, and this guy, this leader of some crazy country wants to buy nuclear warheads, and terrorists are invading the country with, you know, like sleeper cells. You know, it's just all like fear mongering and negativity. And why would you want that in your life? You know, I mean, on one hand, it's human nature to be very interested in this kind of stuff, which is why we buy newspapers and watch news in the first place, because negative things are exciting. It's just how it is, right? When there's a car accident on the highway, we all stop and stare because it's totally unusual from our daily lives, and that's what interests us. Like, nobody cares about anything going right. I mean, unfortunately. So yeah, Lou Reed is just sick of the media. He's sick of negativity. He's like, why can't we talk about positive things all the time? Maybe because we're talking about negative things all the time, it makes other people do negative things. Like, for example, all these mass murderers over the recent years, you know, like all those gun shootings, those shooters shooting up like dozens of people, we talk about them in the media, so they inspire new people who want to get attention to shoot up a bunch of people, because they're like, well, the other guy got media attention and they knew his name and they read his manifesto. You know, I feel neglected. I want people to pay attention to me. And I have a lot of hate in my heart, so I'm going to go murder a bunch of people because I want to be remembered, you know, even if it's for something awful. So anyway, he's just sick of it. He's sick of you, man. He's sick of your media. But anyway, so that's the album. That's the last track I want to talk about. Again, it's just a really classic kind of rock and roll, artsy, poetic, New York vibe. You know, it's very Lou Reed. But I hope you thought it was interesting. I hope you enjoy it. Feel free to let me know in the comments what you thought about it. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It would really help me out. But yeah, that's Lou Reed for you guys. Check him out and have a good one.